Good evening and a very warm welcome to First Issues. 2016 has been a good year for the local arts industry, from the grassroots of theatre to a local film making it into the upper echelons of the international arena. I'm talking about the Cannes Film Festival. It is with this in mind that we took it upon ourselves to have conversations with some of the people behind this momentum and get their views as to the current state of the local arts and culture industry. It is referred to as an industry because although a number of disciplines within arts and culture are dismissed as frivolous, and those who pursue careers within this sphere are generally not given the respect afforded other professionals, unless of course they gain a significant amount of success, it is a bona fide revenue and employment generating sector. In January this year, we learned that revenue at the 2015 global box office crossed $38 billion for the first time in history, surpassing 2014's record $36.7 billion. Film alone employs writers, set designers, makeup artists, graphic designers, actors, caterers, cameramen, administrators, distributors, and a host of other titles that exceed that long list of credits you see at the end of a movie. Even that young person serving you popcorn at the cinema has a job as a result of the world's insatiable appetite for the arts. But the power of the arts extend beyond just the financial gains. They expand ambitions. They set cities that you may not have heard of otherwise as dream destinations. They create lifestyles and shape perceptions. Moving beyond just being consumers and becoming producers of these mass-consumed products could have our cultures, our people, and our national treasures and issues becoming better represented and better esteemed. Help generations revere our own national wonders and our people as well. Stop young Botswana feeling the need to act and look like distant peoples as a result of not seeing people who look and act like those around them in the books they read, the movies they watch, and the music they consume. Contribute in shaping the way that others looking into our culture see and identify us. Give gravitas to our own issues instead of feeling ignored or misrepresented by those who cannot tell them from the same level of understanding. The arts are powerful, and this evening we meet up with a few people encouraging their development. Welcome back to First Issues as we begin our look at the current state of the local arts industry by discussing the recent Shakespeare or Atsila project that encouraged young students and aspiring thespians alike from across the region into participating in the showpieces that took place at Maitisong. Alistair Hagar, who coordinated the local installation of what was a worldwide project, tells us about the objectives of Shakespeare in Botswana.
Well, Shakespeare Lives in Botswana is part of a much wider global project which is sponsored by the Great Britain campaign. It's a UK government project, and that global project is called Shakespeare Lives, and that's run by the British Council and is celebrating the 400th anniversary of Shakespeare's death, celebrating his work on the anniversary of 400th anniversary of his death this year on April 23rd. So Shakespeare Atsila is the Botswana arm of that project, if you like. The aim of the Great Campaign is to promote the UK as a great place to work and study and do business. The aims of Shakespeare Lives, is, especially in Botswana, is to expose teachers and students to Shakespeare's work and to give them the skills where they can perform, not just Shakespeare, but drama, but for the teachers, obviously, to give them teaching skills that will enable them to get their students more involved in the performance side of Shakespeare's texts, because they are government school texts, of course, rather than just reading them in a classroom from the book, which we've all experienced, especially my generation. It's to kind of inspire teachers to get the kids up in the classroom and performing Shakespeare and to develop their understanding of those texts through performance.
So what were the learnings from that entire project as you were the project director?
Personally, the big learning for me was that I had a preconception that perhaps there would be more resistance to the language, there would be more resistance to Shakespeare that it would be difficult to convince people to come on board with this project. Actually, the opposite is true. And what I learned, I suspected this, but what I learned as a fact now is that young people are not afraid of anything. You know, it's when you get older, with something like Shakespeare, it's seen as difficult, and when you get older, and that's when people start to move away from it, probably because, like I said, for my generation, I have good memories of studying Shakespeare, but I don't remember ever having stood up in a classroom and performed it as part of the learning process. So people of my generation, probably around the world, have that kind of memory of it being a bit dusty and a bit kind of other. And but here, it's young people, especially 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, they don't come to it with that kind of preconception. So you've got them, and they're fearless, and the language is not a problem. Even if there are certain words or phrases they don't really understand, they embrace it, they're fine with it, and especially when they perform it, they get the meaning of it through the performance. So that was a very moving thing for me to see that happen, where kids just attacked it and enjoyed it. So that was a big learning for me.
But with regards to the broader learnings, what you'll be filing away in that report, what did you discover?
The engagement from government schools was fantastic. There are a lot of really tremendously passionate literature teachers, and we worked with 5 different government schools. 6 if you include the school we worked with up in Maun. And the engagement there from literature teachers was really extraordinary. So there's a lot of passion for learning, for drama, and for Shakespeare within the school. So that really gives us something to work with in the future. We know that here, for BGCSE, students get a choice whether to take literature or not. And it tends to be mostly girls who take that option. Some of the groups of students were all girls. Some of the other groups there'll be 2 or 3 boys. So that's something I think long term we would look to try to change and get more of a balance there. I mean, it's something that happens across the arts, actually, especially in Africa, where it's seen as a bit of a feminine thing to do, to go into the arts. So that would be something that we would like to address in the future, I think. But the most powerful thing really was that you can create theatre from nothing. All you need is a space and some people and an idea, and then you have theatre. So we saw people doing that in really remarkable and interesting and innovative ways. And so that proved what I had thought, that you don't need to have anything in particular. You don't necessarily need a lot of funding. And I hope that message got across to everybody that we worked with, that theatre really is about community, and that's where it gets its power.
From what our guest has seen in the past 6 years in Botswana, affiliated with Maitisong, how far, or should I say how close are we to an industry that can produce and sustain solid theatre professionals?
The production of quality artists is happening already. I mean, you look at someone like Tefo Paya. I mean, you could put him on any stage anywhere in the world, and he would hold his own. So there's talent. What Botswana needs to look at is how do you hang on to that talent and make sure they don't leave Botswana. And the only way to hang on to that talent is to have an industry which will support those artists. So, you have places like AFTA. That college there, who were developing this next generation of people who are going to be involved in the industry. It's going to take a while. It's going to take a generation or 2, I think. But what it needs is the support of artists themselves, understanding that it's going to take time. Things aren't going to happen overnight. Perhaps movement away from the little bit of the celebrity culture that's happening in all over Africa, where things like The Voice, not saying anything against those programs, The Voice and American Idol seem to be seen as a shortcut to celebrity. And celebrity is a very different thing from art. They're completely different things. So people who have talent, they really need to ask themselves, do you want to be a celebrity or do you want to be an artist? They're not the same thing. And if you want to be an artist, you're going to have to struggle a little bit. Get a full-time job if you can. Pay the bills, do your art in your free time. That's what artists have done for thousands of years. So it's a commitment, but it's a commitment to something which is very important in human life. So I don't think there's a better commitment that you could make.
But what role is there really for theatre and drama in 21st century Botswana specifically, before we even head to the broader world, yeah.
Theatre and art at its best is about people, and who is not interested in people, let's face it. So it's relevant to everywhere. But in a developing country like Botswana, the creative economy is going to be very, very important for the future. And we are seeing the seeds of that now in Botswana. There is a passionate community of artists and performers who want things to happen. And when you have that will, and you have the kind of people who are passionate about making that happen, then amazing things can happen. So it's about community and it's about ideas, and if you look at it ruthlessly, it's about business, because the creative economy is worth billions to the UK economy, for example. And there's no reason why the creative economy couldn't be a huge revenue stream for Botswana as well.
Do you think there's an appreciation of the potential that the creative economy holds for the country?
Well, to give you an example, this theatre we're in now, Mighty Song, for our Shakespeare Lives in a Botswana showcase event. This theatre holds 450 people, and we had 600 in here, so it was absolutely packed. So that shows you that there is an appetite, there is an audience, and it's about developing that audience, and it's up to the community of artists now that's growing so quickly to really think about ways they can develop that audience and network and talk to each other and think about all the different possibilities of bringing people together in an arts community. So yes, I think it's at the very early stages, but there's no reason why you can't dream big.
Welcome back to the show, as we now speak to a young Botswana whose poetry has been recognized by an Italian publishing company as not only fit for mass production, but worthy of inclusion into the country's literature syllabus. Kaleboga Moseki Mang, a 29-year-old woman from Moshopa, tells us her journey up until this point, where she has had 15 of her poems selected by Hibiscus Editrice Rizzolo Publishing Company. Can you tell us about your journey as a poet? Everything from the first time you decided, I love doing this thing, the ups, the downs, the challenges, whether you had family support, whether you didn't, whether you had mentors, everything leading up to this award.
I started I think I was in standard 5. I used to read those books in the library like Pekwe and the Goals. So I'll memorize the stories and act them with my teacher in front of the assembly. So that's where my passion got to start for the arts. Then I started writing poems, but I started performing poetry in Form 2. Yeah, then that's how it began.
So what role do you think poetry has to play in Botswana in this day and age? Many people think it's irrelevant, it's outdated, it's old. What would you have to say to that?
It is very relevant because from long back, poems by poets by Setswana, they've been there forever. Then so we really play a bigger role because we address issues that affect as a whole nation, and human trafficking, romantic poems like Zoneteo, gender equality, we have poems on that, child abuse, we have poems on that, so we can spread the message father and motto no then my poem, then they get motivated and inspired through my poem.
You mentioned how when you went to Italy to receive your award, poets live a very different life from what Botswana poets, and the art form is taken at a much more seriously than we do here. Can you compare?
Hey, there's a huge gap because they're very far, they're so established, their brands, they were sponsored by Sony, some were sponsored by the bigger companies in the countries. Sponsored maybe just the government, no companies, no brand, so they're very far, and the support from the media, support from everywhere, it's huge than here.
What are your aspirations then, based on what you've learned about the industry? I think you've been doing this for years now. Do you hope to cultivate some level of interest from Botswana? Are you looking outward now?
Yes, I am, because I'm grooming other young poets, and I do children performing arts Botswana. I'm an arts educator there, so we're teaching children performing art, from poetry, drama, traditional instruments. So we want to build them from like a young age to nurture them, because if you start from a young age, then you will know, like, you will have a better chance than some of us who nearly gave up. So yeah.
Up next, we speak to another young woman. This time, it's one who's about to be catapulted onto the world stage as a result of her inclusion in the lineup of the prestigious, world-renowned Cannes Film Festival. Thank you for staying with us as we continue to speak to the movers and shakers on the local art and culture scene. Our last guest this evening is Tumi Sedre, whose directorial debut, Awakened Spirit, has been selected in the lineup of this year's Cannes Film Festival in France. Basically, at the most prestigious and therefore invitation-only film festival in the world, alongside mega movie stars and film producers looking to sell their movies to distributors from all over the world, a 15-minute-long film with Setswana dialogue and English subtitles has been given a moment to shine. What did it take for Tumi to get to this moment, one that artisans all over the world are currently just dreaming about? Hi, Tumi.
Hello.
We'd like to hear it all, from the very first moment you fell in love with film, decided you want to be a filmmaker, the highs, the lows, who supported you along the way, if you ever felt like quitting, everything leading up to this moment.
It started over 10 years ago. I hope that doesn't give my age away. And it was through voluntary work. At the time I was living in the States, and I was attending church at the time. And yeah, they had a television department, and they were broadcasting sermons. So that's really where it started. That's where I got trained to operate a camera. And yeah, it was, and that's where I fell in love with motion picture. At the time, photography was my hobby, so everything was like still. But then when I got introduced to now operating a video camera, it was you know, again, the world of motion picture. And I knew that this is what I want to do. So once I moved from the States, I moved to London. And I decided now I'm going to take this to the next level. And that's when I enrolled into a community college and took a one-year course in media communications. But this course like incorporated everything. It was hands-on, and it incorporated all elements of media, your photography, video production, you know, all of that. And I was fortunate enough, the year that I had enrolled, we had an instructor who just retired. Like she had been in 10 years plus in the industry, and she had actually worked with Steven Spielberg before he became famous. So this woman was just like the best person to have around, because she was mentoring us, she was giving us like, you know, such great information in terms of building us our careers. And so she also got the BBC to consider us for a mentorship program, and I was fortunate enough to win a place on that as an aspiring director. So as you can see, it was just like the universe was just aligning stuff, you know, for me.
In a big way.
In a big way, and you know, and this was outside of Bots. So once I came home, you know, it was a bit of a confidence, how can I say, killer, because, you know, I wasn't necessarily getting paid. I was doing this, even if it just made me volunteering, you know, but I was always, you know, active. And so when I got here, there wasn't that kind of energy, you know, even though there were people who were already involved in production, even just going to BTV, I was not able to, you know, I was like, guys, I will volunteer. You don't even have to pay me. But they couldn't, you know, I guess they didn't have things in place to allow such. And so I went for a while without doing anything production-wise. But I did like buy a camera. I remember my cousin helped me purchase a camera, and then I would like you know, just do some stuff just to, you know, keep the passion alive. And I was fortunate to have #1 Ladies Detective Agency come to Botswana. I had already fallen in love with The English Patient, which was directed by Anthony Minghella. So while I was out in London, you know, studying, I got to like study his works, and he was just one of the directors I always aspired to meet. You know, I mean, I think the nice thing about maybe the Western culture in terms of influencing or influencing my creative world was that there's such a huge creative culture. You know, in the States, every single year, there's so many award ceremonies that take place. And literally, it's like the whole country stops and slots in, okay, today we're watching the Oscars, or today, you know, exactly. So you just become fixated in what greatness kind of looks like, you know, and everyone has a story. It's not like these guys just made it. You know, everyone has a struggle, but you get to see it displayed in a way that you can't help but want to be that person, you know. You can't help but want to also follow suit in the same kind of path. So I left those two countries with that embedded in me, you know, and irrespective of the challenges I faced in Botswana, you know, that never left. And that's really what ultimately inspired me to put Awakened Spirit together. It was not so much that I would realize my dream, but I knew that in doing that, I would also contribute to the building of our industry, you know, to the structuring of, you know, the industry that we would eventually like to, you know, work in, you know. So, yeah. So, I mean, and that's, obviously, I couldn't put this movie together on my own. It included a team and who shared the same vision. And everybody literally, you know, we have ours Haulape Basuhi. You've seen her, like she's been in, what's this show? Okay, well, she's been on #1 Ladies Detective Agency. She's been in Ribina Moho. So it's a very familiar face. And I really feel privileged to have had somebody like her, you know, work with us, you know, work with the younger, creatives, yes, because I felt that there was that culture exchange. I mean, she comes from the beginning, you know, the old Botswana, if you want to call it that, and just just let all of us get in together and just say, okay, this is where we want to take our industry to, you know.
We trust you have been inspired and encouraged by tonight's conversations as much as we have, and hope to see an industry grow that can accommodate such world-class talent develop right here in Botswana. Until next time and another issue of interest, I, Namitso Semakula, the team behind First Issues, and our sponsors, First National Bank, wish you a good night and pleasant viewing.